Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I'm going to tell you all about the books that I have read so far in the month of December. So I've only read 4 books so far in December, and one of them is a book that I'm not going to talk about because it's about how to buy a house and all this other stuff. But if you are one of those people who is also hoping to buy a house soon, you can totally just go to my Goodreads and check out the book and everything there. But obviously I think it would be a little bit boring to talk about that with the rest of you guys because it's about buying houses and that's just not fun to talk about anyway. So the first book that I read so far in December is The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, and this is the sequel to The Name of the Wind, and I buddy read this with Emily from Emily Hornberg, and we had a lot of fun buddy reading this because so the first half of this book I actually thought was better than The Name of the Wind even, but then about halfway through, at about page 600 maybe, the book went severely downhill a little bit and got into several completely disconnected story arcs that had nothing to do with the overall story and nothing to do with each other, and I couldn't really see what the point was of any of the stuff that happened right there. But some of it was still very interesting. But basically, one thing that was kind of weird that happened was that the main character ends up visiting this like tribal society that's like really removed from the world and whatnot. And I thought it was really cool that they refer to all the outsiders from the civilized world as barbarians when they themselves are the ones talking about like cutting people's tongues out and cutting people's eyes out and all this stuff. So it just kind of puts into perspective like what we would think of as barbaric and what like barbaric people would think of as barbaric, because nobody sees themselves as the barbarian basically. But at the same time I thought it was kind of weird that the people in this society kind of just didn't seem to know where babies came from, which is a little bit weird, that like a whole society wouldn't be able to figure that out, because obviously everyone else figured it out at some point, so it just seemed kind of weird. But anyway, overall, I absolutely loved this book. It's only, I still think I like The Name of the Wind better, but the first half of this book is still better than The Name of the Wind, and I seriously like flew through this. Next, I read The Vanishing Throne by Elizabeth May, and that is the sequel to The Falconer, which I read last month and absolutely loved, but unfortunately this second book kind of suffered from middle book syndrome a little bit, and actually a lot, and I really didn't like it very much for that reason, and so I felt like nothing really happened in it. The setting is completely different and the vibe is completely different, and it's like nothing like the first book at all. Like none of the stuff that I liked about the first book is really in it. I will give it this though, there was this really awesome badass character who we get in this book who wasn't in the first one, and I loved reading about her. She's so awesome. But basically overall I just felt like I think I had the same problem with it as I did with Truth Witch, which was that I felt like I was reading an action movie when you're not supposed to read an action movie, you're supposed to be able to watch an action movie, and I kind of felt like all it was a bunch of chasing and fighting and running and fighting and blah blah blah, and I'm kind of like, okay, as much as I love, lots of fighting, I kind of would rather, see a book that has other things in it more than that. So the whole thing just really didn't feel very, I don't know, I didn't feel like the stakes were very high, and I didn't feel like the book was anywhere near as good as the first one. So I'm hoping that this was just a hiccup and that the third book will be a lot better. I think the third book comes out like next summer or something, so I'm definitely still gonna read that. And finally, I read Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova, and this is about a girl named Alejandra who is a bruja, and she is a very, very strong bruja who comes from a long line of brujas, but she wants to just be a normal girl because she feels like her powers are really getting in the way of her like living a nice normal life. So she does a spell to try to get rid of her powers, and it ends up getting rid of her family, and she ends up having to go and get her family back. So overall, I thought this book was really, really good. I felt like it was not predictable at all. There were all kinds of twists in it that I did not see coming. I did feel like when she goes to the parallel worlds to try to get her family back, some of the stuff that happened just seemed really arbitrary, and I wasn't really sure why, like, where the basis for that was, but I'm sure it has some kind of basis in folklore or something that I'm just not familiar with, so I don't know. But basically, though, also another thing that I really, really liked about this book is that it's one of those rare books that makes the trope of the sad loner girl with no friends actually work really well, because there is a good reason why she has no friends, and she also does have one friend. So it seemed a little bit more realistic. And so, because my issue with reading so many books about a sad loner girl with no friends, like over and over again, is that usually there's no reason for it, but they give a very clear reason. And so I definitely really appreciated that this is how you represent sad loner girls in literature. Those are the books, besides the house buying book, that I have read in the first half of December. I'm also going to do like a wrap up 1.5 for like between now and when I go on vacation, because I'm leaving Christmas Eve on a vacation, and so I don't really want to like still, I don't know, I feel like if I read books in between now and then, it'll be like too far away from the end of the month for some reason, because I will have like gone somewhere. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!